Welcome to the Online Marketing for Doctors podcast, the place to grow and scale profitable practices with your show hosts, Huyen Truong and Steve Tate.
Welcome to another Online Marketing for Doctors podcast, the first Australian healthcare marketing podcast channel designed to help motivated practitioners implement clever, effective marketing ideas to grow and scale their practice. Hello, I'm your host, Stephen Tate, and this is...
Huyen Truong.
Thanks for joining us again on another exciting podcast channel. We're excited today as we've got another guest post that we're bringing you today. So first off, I'd like to introduce to you our special guest, Mr. Adrian Couzner.
Hello, and thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. We're in Cremorne, Sydney, at your practice here. I was just wondering if you could introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. They call me Dr. Adrian Couzner. I am a chiropractor. I have to make sure I say that after I say doctor. We have a clinic called Chiro H3. We have two practices at the moment, one in Cremorne and one in Sydney CBD. I've been in practice for about 25 years. I graduated initially from Adelaide University with a science degree, majoring in anatomy, and then went to do my postgraduate masters at Macquarie University, one of the major teaching institutions for chiropractic in Australia. So that was about 25 years ago, and since then, I started out as an associate doctor in a practice, and then 4 years later went on to buy one of the practices that I worked in. Wow. And since then, I had that practice for about 15 years before I bought the second practice, which is now the Cremorne practice. So we've got those two practices, incredibly successful practices,
great.
A great team. So, it's a good place to be after 25 years.
Yeah, you've been in service for 25 years. That's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, I mean, you see chiropractic change a fair bit, and I think, what it was like to practice 20 years ago is a completely different landscape to what it's like now. And in many ways, there's it's great, but in many ways it's still challenging as well, and it's a different marketplace, and also the consumers are different. What they were looking for 20 years ago is completely different to what they're looking for now. And obviously there's ongoing publicity issues in chiropractic, and sometimes you look at them as adversity and things you've got to navigate that are really challenging, but in fact what tends to happen after those scenarios is everyone comes out stronger and more informed, and,
sure.
and they often can be good things rather than negative.
Sure. And I think that's a great segue into today's topic, this idea of change and what you've seen historically with marketing your practice throughout sort of 25 years. Because we're going to talk about something a little bit different today, because normally, we're all about digital marketing and what are the new techniques and the modern ways of using digital marketing to advance your practice. But today we're actually going to look at something a little bit different, because you still employ a lot of ground marketing techniques. And so on today's podcast, we're going to look at the best ground marketing techniques to grow your practice fast. Now, ground marketing, just to maybe give a little bit more of a background on it, the idea being that these are more your foot on the floor, out there meeting, actively engaging with potential clients. And so very different from sort of what people are all aspiring to do right now, get online, place ads on Google, place ads on Facebook. But you've found this to be an effective strategy for your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we use it as part of our overall marketing strategy. So, of course, we do have our digital component to that. But we find that from actually getting face-to-face with people, you actually do have a chance to build rapport and build a real connection. So for us, our ground marketing, our principal ground marketing techniques would be screenings. Mm-hmm. So we run pop-up stores that occur in shopping centres, but also at major expos. So if you look in Sydney, for example, there's some really big expos that occur mostly over at the exhibition centre or convention centre. So things like the fitness show, the baby and toddler show, the Sydney Half Marathon, things like that, City to Surf, those big ones.
Those are very big events.
Yeah, they're great events, and they're ones that are already with a market that's interested in what you've got to offer.
Yeah.
Because, we look at Baby Toddler Show, there's families, people looking at health choices for their family moving forward. And we know in anything when it comes particularly to medical, that women make the decisions around what the family is going to do and what they're going to engage with in regards to health. So, places like that are awesome. Plus, if you're looking at those, the fitness show or the, Blackmores or the Sydney Half Marathon, they're people that are health conscious. They're people that are already engaged in health practices, and they're looking for, either solutions to current issues that are going on with them, or they're looking at solutions around performance. So we tend to use those kind of events for screenings. And then we also do corporate outreach. So in the corporate environment, particularly these days, the corporate world is looking at wellness, and they're looking at how do we include wellness in the work environment, given that most people in the modern world are probably in the office from 40 to 60 hours a week. We need to make sure that we're employing wellness principles in the workplace, and that gone are the days of separating life at home compared to life at work. It's all part of the same kind of thing. So in the corporate environment, most of what we do there is corporate speaking. And they tend to be like a lunch and learn format. So we might be there for 45 minutes to an hour. We give a presentation, and then we generate leads off that presentation to come into the office.
From their employees? Or
from their employees. So, we would arrange it through a HR manager where they basically, we will liaise with them, work out what the topic's going to be. For us, we're using hot topics that are in the media and in the market at the moment. So it might be sitting is the new smoking. It might be stay fit while you sit. Because we know that this modern day world of sitting at a desk for prolonged periods of time is a lot of the cause of many of the health issues that we're seeing in the modern world. And then one of our other favourite topics is stress management. So stress management being a big one, and something that everyone's had an experience with stress at some point. So it's a real hot topic to talk about. And in that scenario, the HR manager organises it. They, invite their team, and we're speaking in front of, anywhere from 10 people to 50 people at a time, presenting a topic that's really engaging and entertaining and thought-provoking, but gives them some real kind of actionable, tangible steps that they can take away straight away. And that's an audience. Like for us, we use these techniques like screening and corporate talk because, number one, you get a period of time with someone. We find that digital marketing can be quite fickle in that people look at your page, they're there for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Getting longer engagement can sometimes be the challenge, but when you're face-to-face with an audience, you've got a captured audience of 20, 30 people, you get to speak to them for a period of time, you get the chance to build rapport and develop a relationship, and they get a sense of what you're like and what your practice is like, and also get a sense of what your mission, your vision, your values, and what you're all about.
So it's building a relationship and getting better engagement with your potential prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also find that the quality of the lead is different than what you're going to get on a digital platform. Because often I think on a digital platform, people are shopping around, they're looking for the next kind of idea or the next biggest deal or the thing that sticks out to them or highlights to them, engages them. But when you actually got someone who sat and listened to you for 45 minutes, give a lunch and learn presentation, and they still decide that they're interested in what you do, they're a different consumer. They're pretty much 80% across the line that they're prepared to buy because they feel like they know you, they feel like they know what you do. And so we get much better conversion where they decide to start care with us.
And just so that the audience here who's listening has a chance to appreciate sort of what this means for your practice, what percentage would you say of your sort of new patients are coming from these types of techniques?
Yeah, well, at the moment, we find that from the digital perspective, we're probably getting about 10% of our new clients from digital, whereas we're getting, the 90% are coming from our internal, external marketing. So on the ground marketing, you'll probably find that about 60% would come from our ground marketing, 10% from the digital, then you get about 30% from your internal marketing processes, which is generating internal leads from existing clients. As well as running internal events for existing clients.
Great.
So I think, for us, what it is again, instead of, sometimes I find digital marketing, you have to vomit onto the universe.
Sure.
And wait for people to catch it.
Right.
And hope that you're catching them at the right time when they're prepared to buy. Maybe vomit's not the right word. I think in the medical context, it's a good word.
It's a great visual for our audience right now.
But I feel like it's spewing information out into the world.
Sure.
Hoping that there's consumers there that are at the point in their lives where they're prepared to buy.
Correct.
Whereas with our ground marketing, you're grabbing an audience, you're often in that scenario, particularly when we're doing lunch and learns, it's a one-to-many process rather than just a one-on-one where you got one salesperson speaking to a prospective client and trying to get them to engage. It's a one-on-many process.
Correct.
And they're already self-filtering as to whether they think they're a candidate for what you do.
Right.
So the ones that do decide that they're going to come in, you've got better conversion rates or much better chance that they're going to start to buy or engage with the process or the treatment options you're giving.
Sure.
So forth.
And have you always been using sort of these same techniques, say, over the 25 years? Or did you start with something, shift into something else? Has it always been?
Look, in the chiropractic world has been has by necessity needed to get out there and have some alternate marketing techniques. Now, I guess it's also, covered itself with some skepticism because of it. But I think what we need to understand is right from the very get-go, when chiropractic became established in Australia, it was deemed to be like voodoo or witch doctor, or they're doing something crazy or different. Sure. And so, we never relied on getting, referrals, I guess, from other health practitioners, from doctors, from specialists and so forth. So in order to attract an audience, we already had to do some things that were slightly different. And back 30, 40 years ago when chiropractors were out there doing screenings or marketing, it was, they're charlatans, they're selling you into something.
Sure.
But guess what? Medicine's doing it now. They're doing these techniques in order to speak to an audience. So look, in the chiropractic world, it's been going on for a very long time in that we've been out, doing talks. Obviously, we've refined it and improved it and so forth. I think probably the most interesting thing since I've been in practice is really digital marketing didn't exist.
Correct.
So 25 years ago, we weren't doing digital marketing. Marketing for us was Yellow Pages advertising.
Right.
In a book.
Correct. A book
that now only serves as a purpose to elevate your screen height for your ergonomics on your computer. So, you know what I mean? Like even that. So, we were doing Yellow Pages advertising and obviously getting out and doing talking and screening then. And now I think it's, it's flipped in that we're now doing digital marketing as well as doing, our consistent, other stuff as well, yeah.
Sure. I mean, obviously, this has been successful for you, and is it still something that's as successful, or is it more or less as consistent, or has it changed sort of for you?
I don't feel like it's changed. I feel like the audience is the same, has the same needs, they're still looking for the same thing. I think the only way it's changed is we get better at it.
Right.
And it's definitely one of those things that the more you do, so for example, lunch and learns. You go out and do your first lunch and learn, you're not so great at it, you're not so hot. But by the time you repeat and you practice, it's not so much about, just delivering content. You can actually then deliver content with heart and purpose and passion, and that creates a different outcome, I guess, in the end, because people, when you speak into people and they really hear what you're talking about and you can engage with the audience and develop empathetic connection to them, that's what people feel in that kind of environment in a lunch and learn. So I think we've just got better and better at it as time's gone by.
Sure.
And because of that, we have a greater return on our investment. So then it's really about making sure that we pick the right avenues to go out and do our lunch and learn.
Speaking to the right people.
Absolutely.
Going to the right events.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah. And again, I think, these type of relationships, they're relationships you want to continue to nurture. And, you don't want to be burning through corporate lunch and learn leads and then never going back there again. You want to be having this repeat relationship when you can continue to engage with an audience. And this is interesting where kind of the digital online component comes to it, because that's where we like to develop a continued relationship, I guess, with them by getting them to join Facebook page, getting them to actively participate in a wellness page that we have for our corporates, because when they can not just engage with us at a lunch and learn, but there's some continued relationship we can have with them, even if at no point do they ever decide that they want to become one of our clients. It's about continuing to provide value in a way that they'll engage with.
Yeah, sure. Now, I mean, we've already kind of touched on the idea that obviously you are still doing some digital marketing, or that over time digital marketing has become a presence in your marketing mix. But do you feel a heightened pressure to do more in sort of the digital marketing space, or are you just comfortable with the fact that you've been successful with ground marketing and you can just let that go?
Well, we're the type of people that the status quo is never going to be good enough.
Sure.
So it's not the type of thing I think where you just want to sit on it and go, you know what, I'm comfortable with that. The space is ever expanding. I think it's ever growing, it's changing. And I think if you just sat back and did what you did even 1 year ago or 2 years ago, you're going to be left behind.
Sure.
So I think it's a really important part of an overall marketing strategy. I would never like to rely on it purely as our primary stream for marketing. But, you know, I don't feel the pressure of it, but I think it's definitely something that you need to keep up with. I think if you don't, you're missing out on a whole another piece of the pie or the puzzle that really needs to, you know, sit together to make a successful practice. And I think, you know, one of the challenges in, you know, particularly in chiropractic practices, but also maybe also in general medical practices, is that if you don't create a system and a process that is repeatable around marketing, then your practice is probably going downhill. It's not growing and it's not expanding, and you're not really reaching the audience and having that impact that you could potentially have an impact on.
Yeah.
And you'll find that probably when you look at most healthcare professionals, the reason they're in it is because they want to make an impact. They want to change lives. They want to improve people's lives, improve quality of life. You can't do that by just sitting in your practice and seeing the clients that walk in the door. The only way you really do that and create massive impact is if you've got people coming in that need your care.
Yeah.
And, you know, using digital marketing is a way to reach an audience that you would otherwise not reach.
Sure. Plus, I also imagine it's more of an integration now, too, because I imagine even these events, there's a digital marketing component to these events. Like, I don't know, do you post events, like post photos of you guys on your social media channels or something like that?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Yeah, like it's not just doing a ground event all on its own. There's a broader sort of even digital component that can still be a part of it.
Yeah, and have you tried to collect these people email addresses so you can keep marketing to them over time?
Yes, absolutely.
Because they can move, you know, from one company to another, and
exactly.
Yeah, it's very good, very important.
Yeah, and I think we all know that database is everything.
Yeah,
Sure.
And that you need to be collecting, you know, names and not, you know, creating these relationships that are unidimensional, that are just you in front of them, and then once you leave, you know, it's all over. You know.
Yeah. Do you have any special offer at the event you give out to these people in order to collect the information, like the contact?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always give like a special offer. Now, it's this delicate balance, because we go out there into the corporate, and it's not like you can go in there hard selling about, you know, come and see me. It's going to cost you this amount of money, hundreds of dollars. You've got to do it in a way where, you know, obviously there's authenticity and a genuine nature to it, but where it becomes that there's an arrangement that has been negotiated so that, you know, the staff get an opportunity to come and see what we do.
Okay.
And so we always have a special offer. It's an intro offer where they basically get to come and see us and have some initial testing done, where we get to meet them, we get to have a chat about what their specific concerns are, you know, if they've got any particular goals that they're looking to achieve that they can't currently achieve because whatever situation they're in. And then do some testing, find out what's going on, and then, you know, have the opportunity to sit down with them and then walk them through what a process might be on how that might unfold. What would treatment look like with us at Chiro H3, and, you know, what we could possibly achieve to help them reach their goals. And then they basically, you know, get that chance to decide, is that something they're interested in? And if it is, then we move forward. And I think one of the other really important things, and I think it applies for all your marketing, is that you really do need to have metrics on all of these things.
Sure.
So that you can measure the success, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, there are things from, you know, the number of new clients that you acquire off a digital process, or the number of new clients you acquire, you know, off a ground marketing activity, and then how many actually convert into care, which, you know, for us is how many of people decide that they're actually going to start care with us.
Yeah.
And so we have metrics around that, and then we obviously have metrics as well around retention, which is, do you keep them? Or are you burning through these people, giving them, a couple of treatment sessions and they're out of there, they decide they don't want to continue to engage. So for us, we have these metrics around how we attract, how we convert, and how we retain clients.
No, the use of metrics, I think, is a great point for anyone engaged in any marketing initiative. They've got to be able to know if this is providing a good return on their investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, these days, we know that, we have mission, vision, and values, and the way we measure our impact is our impact on our mission and our impact on our vision is using these metrics, because that's the only way we really know whether we're fulfilling our mission and our vision of our practice. So metrics is something. If you're not doing metrics, you have to be measuring the success of your activities, not only just those marketings I spoke about, but how well you retain clients.
Sure.
As well as how well you kind of convert prospective leads into actual clients as well.
Do you notice any sort of threats to these ground marketing techniques? Is there any sort of outside influences that are maybe you might be, concerned could impact the quality or the effectiveness as they've had on your operations?
I don't necessarily see them as threats. We're obviously, as health practitioners, all bound by APRA, and APRA has some fairly stringent rules around how you market, how you create special offers. They really don't like people being enticed into care that they would not otherwise consider necessary. As long as you stick to the rules and you work within the ground rules, then there really is nothing else that we kind of have to really worry about.
Sure.
I think probably our biggest challenge is always just having the bandwidth to be able to continue to do the activities, and you've got enough hands on deck and you've got enough people there to be able to carry out the processes. And especially when you're a practice which relies on seeing patients. So you rely on seeing patients, but then you have to be doing these external or ground marketing techniques, and you need bandwidth to be able to do that. You need hands on deck to be able to do that. Sure. And I think it's this delicate balance between and making sure that the people that are doing the activities, that is their skill set. So that we make sure that practitioners, that their skill set is around looking after clients and adjusting clients, that's what they do.
Right.
And it's a completely different skill set for someone who's supposed to be out there in public and promoting the clinic or promoting our services and promoting what we do.
Correct.
So we make sure that, from that perspective, we've got the right, what we call the right bums on the right seats.
Yes. Again, and another very good point that our audience should pick up on. That is it's a very valuable thing to sort of employ to make sure that you've got the right people in the right positions.
Yeah, because everyone's not a marketer.
Correct.
Not everyone can get up in an audience and speak in front of 50 people and do it with clarity and confidence and certainty and so forth.
And yet you'll find people who believe they are.
Yeah. And look, when you do your metrics, you will soon work out that actually maybe they can't. So, look, it's really interesting in the chiropractic profession, and again, it's probably not dissimilar in the most of the medical profession, is when we profile people's personality, we find that most of chiropractors are what we call caregivers. Sure. And caregivers are awesome being one-on-one with a client, but put them in front of an audience to speak to 50 people and it all starts to go downhill.
Right.
So it's a unique skill set, and I think when we're looking at marketing, and particularly the ground marketing, we've got to make sure that the right people are doing those right events and those right ground marketing events, because when we measure our metrics, it's going to be pretty evident whether they are the right people, the right fit.
That's a good point. One more question just around ground marketing. Do you have any advice for our listeners who maybe might be considering it? Maybe some words of encouragement or discouragement?
No discouragement. I could spend hours just on planning.
Right.
Look, I think planning is a lot of it. Testing is a lot of it. I think many people think that they have to get it 100% right the first time, otherwise it's a fail. I think it's a journey and it's a process, and I often think that 80% good enough is good enough, and that a lot of people are crippled and don't start something and don't start a ground marketing process because they're worried that it's not perfect. But I think sometimes you've just got to get in there and do it, and just to do it in order to make the changes so that you make it better. So I think planning becomes a really important thing. I think just doing it takes a whole lot of guts, so just get out there and make it happen. I think training, working with your team, particularly the team that's going to be doing the marketing process, and train them hard, like train them in scenarios, train them how you want them to represent the business, train them on maybe the type of dialogue that they're going to use to engage with the audience. Make sure they understand your product inside out. They can't, lack of certainty in the seller is going to completely, destabilize that relationship, and when you're going to lose integrity in that way. So making sure that the team really understand the product and they understand what they're delivering or what we're delivering in practice. I think they're kind of the major things. Training, I think planning becomes so important. And again, the marketing component of it, making sure that what you project out there in the public is really representative of your brand, is really consistent with the brand and what you're trying to achieve back in practice. But again, as practitioners, we just want to help and serve people. And I think if you go out there with that authenticity, that the impact that you have is by really how much value you can give to someone. The more value you give to someone, the more you can impact them. And the money kind of sorts itself out. Do you know what I mean? Practices will automatically become successful when you give value.
Correct.
Right? You just give value, guess what? You become successful. So I think you go out there with that mindset, and then it doesn't really become marketing. It just becomes kind of, giving and caring.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Adrian, for bringing this topic to our podcast listeners. I think it's great to get sort of a different marketing idea out there after listening to us go on and on about digital marketing. So I think it's been a very valuable topic that you've brought up for us today. We do always at the end of our podcast, we have a sort of specific sort of medical marketing question that we like to sort of throw on to our guests spontaneously without them knowing what's going on. And I guess recently, Huyen and I, we've been doing a lot of discussion around the question that you get from patients, how much does it cost? And how we answer that question and what effect that it has on sort of getting leads and converting those leads into patients. So we're just sort of wondering, what is your experience with answering that question, how much does it cost question, and how does it influence, your conversion rates?
It's an interesting question because you'd like to kind of throw back on them, well, how much is your health worth?
A great point.
That's a little hard one. Now, interestingly enough, we actually don't get that question too much.
Yeah, right.
And the reason being is because when we do our marketing, we really talk about let's go to kind of the first kind of point, which is let's find out if we can actually help you, whether what you're experiencing is something that we deal with, whether in fact we can help you, and if it's not us that can help you, we'll make sure that we refer you to the right person. But if it is us that can help you, well, then we're going to talk about what that strategy might involve as far as what does it involve with treatment and how much that might cost. So for us, we would never talk about the overall kind of amount that it costs. But if someone's kind of looking at, okay, what's kind of really the dollar rate to come into the ballpark figure to come into the practice, I have no hesitation in saying to them, look, the standard consultation is going to be somewhere between 65 to 75. It's set by our governing body. You'll find that that's standard across the board, right? Because to me, when people are shopping on price, they're never really shopping on price. Money to me is never an issue. It's about value, and it's about whether they value what we do. So when someone says to me, I can't afford it, it's not that they can't afford it, they just don't see the value in what I do.
Exactly.
That's
quite
exactly
like what we said in our sales guide about how to answer that question, cleverly.
Yeah. Because it's not even if someone's already engaged with care, they've been with us for 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, and that idea that I can't afford it moving forward, it's not that they can't afford it, it's that they've failed to continue to see the value in what you do. No. And so really, I put that back on ourselves to say, at what point did we lose them where they failed to see that we were providing value, that there was an ongoing value to continue to engage with care. And I think that's a really important question to ask ourselves as practitioners, to actually put it back onto ourselves, to say, well, where did I stop?
Yeah.
Where did I not continue to provide them value? Because as long as you continue to, they'll continue to engage with care, and they'll move heaven and earth to make sure that they can make it work financially.
Sure. Great.
So, you know, look, I also think that people will self-select themselves at the beginning, and I'd rather them self-select themselves out
Sure.
and decide that they're not going to opt in right from the very beginning. Then we start a process and we never finish a process because they then halfway through the process decide they're going to drop out.
Right.
And I think it depends whether you have a scarcity mindset and that you want to try and take everyone, like everyone's got to come and see me, I'll take anyone who's prepared, or whether you decide there's actually is a right fit.
Yeah.
There's a right fit of a person that is the right person to be here because they're our peeps, they get us, they share similar values and ideas about health and well-being. They belong in the practice. We see how they fit into our family. That's a different kind of person to the person who's already shopping for money. So we let them self-select. If they want to go before they even begin, go right ahead.
Great. No, that's wonderful advice and wonderful feedback. We agree very much with the idea that it's sort of establishing the value of your services in their eyes, communicating it to them clearly. And
I think you need to communicate it consistently as well, because over time, if we don't continue to put energy into the relationship with our clients, like anything, any relationship deteriorates if you don't put energy into it. And so it's continuing to kind of engage with them and showing that there's continued value with the relationship, and then they continue to engage with care.
Yeah.
Great. And if you want to find out more about this topic, you can download our sales guide that's available on the Online for Marketing for Doctors website. That'll talk a lot more about the how much does it cost question and how answering it can affect your lead conversions. That brings us to the end of another fantastic podcast. Thank you very much, Adrian and Couzner, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. It's been fun. I could have kept talking.
I hope the hot seat.
The longest one so far.
Hope the hot seat wasn't too hot for you.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. You were a wonderful guest and brought a very valuable and interesting topic, a different perspective than
to marketing.
To marketing that a lot of our audience members traditionally get. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That brings us to the end of the podcast. If you have any feedback on this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Just drop a message into the comments field below. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at the next show.
Thank you for listening to the Online Marketing for Doctors podcast with Huyen Truong and Steve Tate. Be sure to check out the archive section on our website for previous episodes at onlinemarketingfordoctors.com/podcast. And subscribe to the show so we can catch you at the next episode.